for his legacy.
Well, we're coming to your city. Gonna play our guitars and sing you a country song. We'll all be flying higher than a jetliner. And if you want a little bang in your yin-yang, come along.
Come on along. Welcome to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, brought to you by the great folks at Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer. Jim Coyle with you as always. Kevin Brockway joins me on this Tuesday as he does as well. We will have Mike DeCourcy along in perfect timing. And Chronic Hoosier. Been looking for stuff to talk about. Oh, yeah, Indiana's women's team had a number 4 seed in their tournament. Just trying to find stuff to talk about. Oh, yeah. Archie Miller got fired. So there's that. Indiana basketball looking for a new coach. They pulled the trigger just moments after we finished doing the show yesterday. I was so disappointed about that. But that is a good day for Indiana basketball. And I am thoroughly confident in Scott Dolson to do this job. He has already done, and it's not just because he pulled this trigger. Watching him talk, he doesn't BS. Fred Glass was a big BSer. He was a lawyer. That's what Fred Glass, he was a lawyer. That's all so big difference here. I trust that Scott Dolson, I just think he is in a much better position to do this job. And I've been wondering about that, Kevin, because he had never been an AD. He'd been a fundraising guy. But at least there's numbers. There's a lot of familiarity with big numbers there. So he had that familiarity, and he's been around basketball, IU basketball, since the 80s. So I think it's going to be a great combination. I fully have confidence in him to make this hire, because this hire, Kevin, there's zero margin for error here. You cannot, by any means, not forget about having an Archie Miller. You can't have a Tom Crean. You got to have a what's his name that's now at Houston without the screw-ups, without the cheating, and then some. So where are we with that? What do you think?
Well, and it's kind of interesting because I was kind of kicking myself. The question I asked was about style of play and prerequisite for head coaching. But I think the thing I should have asked is even about compliance, because, a lot of people are throwing Rick Pitino's name around. And after Kelvin Sampson, I just don't see it, with regards to that, with regards to what
that'll never happen.
Indiana is going to do. So I think that, when you look at the final analysis, I mean, credit Scott Dolson for pulling the trigger. It had to be done. We were both there Thursday night. That atmosphere was toxic with the booze, them failing to score down the stretch. I mean, it got really, really bad inside that building. And I don't know if that was necessarily a factor in Scott's decision. I thought it was interesting when Scott also said that he had been around the team a little bit and he had traveled with the team. I'm sure he was taking notes as to what was going on, and saw the direction where the program was headed. So how Archie interacted with players, maybe a little bit, and the coaching staff did, and maybe that factored in the decision as well. But I do think that, you got to get someone that players are excited about playing for. I think that was apparent, in the Archie era. We've talked about this ad nauseum about players being tight. Players look like they're not having a good time. I think you want that kind of like Tom Allen type, that's someone that players are really going to rally around.
Absolutely. It makes the game funner. I mean, those players look like they were going through misery, but they don't have to do that anymore. So we don't have to worry about that. But you're right. And I think it was such an unusual situation. I mean, wow. I guess I haven't been around one, but even from afar, I don't remember one, but I guess unless you are around it, you don't realize But yeah, this was it was just, I can't explain how weird it was. You just did a good job of it for those that don't get the chance to be around the program. It was an odd thing. Several people commented, and former players would comment about the hokey Coach Cliff stuff and all that, and all the pictures of all that stuff, but no product. So I think it's going to be a different day, a completely different day. Scott Dolson hit some key words: rebranding of the Indiana, rebuild that Indiana brand, because it is a great brand, and it is such that I promise you, it just needs a little water, and this thing is going to grow like a forest. That's the thing about Kevin, about true blue blood programs, and Indiana basketball is a blue blood program. And as soon as someone, whether it's Brad Stevens, whether it's John Beeline and a player, whether it's Chris Beard, who knows? You can throw out you can just pick a name out of a hat right now, but whoever Scott Dolson gets, I think knows that. And I think they are going to grow this, and I think they're going to grow it quickly.
Yeah, and I thought it was pretty interesting too what Scott Dolson said about someone forward thinking too, somebody that has sees where college basketball is headed. I think that's an interesting some interesting comments he made too, because I mean, if you take a look at Archie's program, when you take a look at the approach, I mean, no value of shooters, no value of 3-point shooting. That's a direction where college basketball is headed. It's not headed in the direction of guys playing with their back to the basket 90% of the time and getting 2-point shots. If anything, last year's team was more equipped to do that than this year, because this year's team didn't have the same size, and you just didn't have the consistent shooting, and that's something that you need, and you need a coach that values that in recruiting and development, because that's where the game is headed, and it's where the game is going to continue to head with the analytics. And I think that that's going to be interesting to see if they find a coach with that kind of mindset.
And then here's the question that cracks me up. Here's the thing I will say. There's that. But when will they find out? Just relax. Just chill. You just got to chill, because when you don't, you get all caught up in all this. Nobody knows anything right now. Nobody knows anything. I promise you, if Brad Stevens is a possibility, and Kevin, what's your opinion? But I think that if he's a possibility, there has been a back channel reach out to gauge any interest whatsoever. If there's no interest, they move on. If they say that there's interest, then that becomes an interested party. They do that to a couple others. I think that's how this goes down, because if you look at other names, if you did look at Chris Beard, he's playing in the NCAA tournament right now. You cannot talk to him. Now, back channeling is agents, someone, it's an associate. That's what back channeling is. You have not the university, but someone representing the university talks to someone representing that party, and they talk, gauging interest. If there's interest, well, now we have a conversation, but it's a very delicate one, Kevin, because virtually everybody that there's no one that they're looking at possibly that's not playing right now, I would think.
Yeah, you would think so. You would think that you want to make this hire, and I asked about the head coaching prerequisite, but I would be shocked if it was someone without head coaching experience, even though Scott left that door open. I think it's got to be someone who's established, who's experienced. And, you've got guys like Scott Drew that are playing in the tournament, Brad Stevens, who has an NBA season. You've got Chris Beard, who has a college basketball season. So people like that, I think, are going to be, you're going to have to wait on a little bit for sure.
Jennifer says she can't wait. It's just not her speculate. It's not in her. It's maddening to her. You have to, because she said all this. There is no speculation. The only speculating is coming from people. There's names out there, okay, but these are just names that are thrown out. Brad Stevens. The reason that comes out is because that's the dream hire. because they had that opportunity before. We know how good he is. He's an Indiana guy. He's from Zionsville. It's just people claim it's his dream job. He didn't go to school here, but of course,
his dad was a football player here, right?
Yeah, right. Played football in Indiana. But yeah, he's an Indiana guy, and we know what he did at Butler. He's a basketball savant. He's young. Indiana
and
would
he's
be set.
He's forward thinking too. That's the thing. You know, he's always
going to be on the cutting edge. He's ahead of the curve. He creates the curve. He's one of those guys that creates the curve. He has one of those basketball minds. He's like a Bob Knight without the temper. Because Bob Knight had a genius basketball mind. He had a genius mind. He was a genius. That's why, and this is another thing. Everybody says, "Oh, Archie was just all about basketball. He's just intense." Bull crap. He was just he was just kind of a half a jerk. I mean, that's what people, if you're not around people, you don't know. That's the truth of the matter. That's why Kevin's smiling.
Rick Bozich had a great line in his column. He talked to someone, one person, I guess he was kind of anonymous, but he talked about Archie Miller, and he said he never saw him smile.
Exactly. He did not participate with the IU media. He would not do anything with us. It was just, he was an odd duck. And there's so many reasons why he's not at Indiana anymore. It's not that went into that, I think. But anyway, these names, man, there is no, do you know why you have not had, Alfred's name is not being batted around except by some old IU people. That's not going to happen. What in the world would that do for Indiana? Seriously. What kids today know who the hell Steve Alford is? And what does that mean? They don't care about playing for a guy with a slick, the hair parted down the middle and all that. I mean, this is today a different game. He's been a head coach for 26 years. He's had 0 tournament success, 6 times to the Sweet 16. That's it. So Fife, he's not leaving Michigan State. Kevin, do you think I think that he is the heir apparent there to Tom Izzo.
Yeah, and I think also, like you said, didn't he coach at Purdue Fort Wayne and didn't have a really
did not have success, was fired there.
So he's got some head coaching experience on his resume, but it's not good head coaching success. So what makes you think that he could be successful at this level? I mean, at least Archie had success at the Atlantic 10 level, and then he comes here and it's just a meat grinder. So I think you want someone with established success. And someone
absolutely
at the major level too. I don't know, like the one guy who, and I think we talked about this on Thursday night. The one guy maybe at that mid-major level that would be intriguing would be Porter Moser. But the question is, do you worry about the same thing that happened to Archie? You know what I mean?
I can promise you, there will be no mid-major gambles. There is 0 margin for error on this hire. I mean, there's no razor thin line. There's no line. They have 0 margin for error. It has to be one of these people that we're talking about. It has to be Brad Stevens, Chris Beard, John Beilein with an IU player, Scott Drew, somebody that is a winner.
Alec, your writer Alec at Rivals mentioned Thad Matta, which I thought was kind of interesting too. But didn't he have he had the foot problem, right? And towards the end at Ohio State, it got pretty bad.
I would put Thad Matta with a John Beilein, a Thad Matta with an IU player kind of thing, a possibility. I don't see him as a long-term deal, although he's like 53. He's not old. Whereas John Beilein is 68. So, yeah, you're not going to get much out of John Beilein. You're not going to get much along the lines of recruiting. So we're late for a break. Let's do that. Let's see, Mike. Is Mike up next?
So we got Mike Find out next.
All right, we'll be back with more from the Golf Club here at Eagle Point Studios, brought to you by Andy Moore Honda Bloomington. Back right after this. Hey, we all want more, and no one gives you more for less than Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. And right, yeehaw, boy, look at Mikey, right on. Hey, Mikey, how are you?
Morning, guys.
How are you, sir?
I am well. How are you?
I'm just doing fine. I think it's a happy day in Bloomington.
Yeah.
Mike, thanks again for your help on Sunday.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah.
Always available to you, of course.
What, did you leave a power cord again?
No. I called him for a story. I had to do a story on Sunday about the Big Ten in the NCAA tournament. I did a kind of 9 teams and stuff and everything.
Figured you lost your power cord again.
No.
He's always losing his power. He always loses it and then finds it in his bag.
Yeah.
I'm like, man.
I had a nickname in Gainesville. It was ADD boy. You know, it was kind of like I lose things constantly.
I am ADHD, and
yeah.
So I've got so many things in my bags that they're a mess, and it's like I will never not have what I need because I got like 40 of them. because of the ADD, and I'm like, gosh, you're a mess.
Nah.
Oh man, well, we don't have to work hard to find something to talk about today, Mike.
You don't say. Is that?
But you know what? I was saying, I put a poll up on Twitter, and not that it's scientific, but it's like 700 votes. And I gave out, there's only 4 spots you could do. So I said, who will be the next coach of IU? I put Chris Beard, Brad Stevens, John Beilein with an IU player, Scott Drew. Brad Stevens and John Beilein with a player are like neck and neck. I thought Brad Stevens would really be out there, but he's that one surprised me.
Maybe the fans are realistic and are, I mean,
I think so.
The guy has said like a zillion times he loves coaching the NBA. He doesn't want to coach college. And if he did want to coach college, why would he want to go there where they fire all their coaches? I mean, I don't. We're not on right now, are we?
No. But I think that I think this one I think that they are going to go for him.
Good luck.
You don't think he's going to come back to college coaching period, just a college coaching thing?
Not voluntarily.
Elephants and giraffes, lodging that is out of this world, world-class golfing, and a premier resort experience that is waiting for you on your next visit to French Lick, West Baden.
Today's guest is brought to you by Reynolds Family Dentistry of Sillersburg. You need $1 million smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you'll get with Reynolds Family Dentistry. Go back to sleep. Welcome back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. Man, keep me on my toes. No idea what that is. Brought to you by the great folks at Andy Moore Honda Bloomington. Joined now by the great Michaels. Of course, Mike, how are you, sir?
I am very well, Jim. How are you?
We are fine and just talking away about the latest current events that are happening in Bloomington right now. Kevin, of course, Brockway with me.
Kevin,
morning.
Good to see you.
Yes.
Yeah, I just minutes after we completed yesterday's show, minutes after I'd said, just relax, people. It's not going to happen this year. Just chill. Boom, it happened. And because it's like I was trying to do Scott Dolson a favor and take the pressure off of him, and I did that. It was a ploy, and it worked. It took the pressure off of him, and then boom, he lowered the boom yesterday. Which, were you surprised that he did it? I knew it. I thought it had to happen. I did not think they were going to do it, though.
Well, I wasn't surprised. I mean, it had been trending in that direction in terms of the public stance for a while now. I believe that this, I read a headline that said they gambled on their last hire, and that's absolutely not true. They've hired now 3 consecutive coaches who had outstanding resumes, and they, of course, they promoted Mike Davis as the assistant in in 2000, and he had a very fine resume for an assistant coach, but maybe not what one would expect relative to becoming the head coach at Indiana. But then he spiced up that resume by taking the team to the championship game in 2002. And so you've now gone through, think about it, four coaches, three of whom had a Final Four on their resume at some point in their career prior to being dismissed by IU, and one who had an Elite Eight. And so I think that there needs to be an understanding that it's not all, that it's not just who you're hiring, that how this works has to be examined, and the process has to be embraced. It doesn't, it very rarely happens immediately, and when it doesn't happen immediately, the response can't always be, you have the wrong guy, try again. I truly believe that. Now, I think under this circumstance, that in order to diffuse that concept, that me saying that people need to embrace the process, people are not going to embrace the process. So in order for that to work, I think they need to hire somebody that has legitimate gravitas, that people can't question. They can't say, well, yeah, that was one Final Four, or, okay, he did it at Dayton, but it wasn't the Big Ten or whatever. It has to be somebody whose resume is so gigantic that the questions can't come. And I don't think that necessarily is true of the next hot guy. You already hired the next hot guy twice in a row and were dissatisfied with the results. So you have to do more than that.
Kevin, you knew about some of the searches for like mid-major coaches when you were at Florida. They had to replace their coach. They went through that. What was that situation like?
Archie Miller's name was mentioned in that coaching search, and Chris Mack, and they went with Mike White, who was a little bit of a dark horse candidate, but I think a lot of people thought going into it was kind of third in line. And it was basically a situation where I think they thought that with Mike, he was an up-tempo offense guy, similar to Billy Donovan. And, Mike is going to be taking another team to the NCAA tournament. And yet people there are dissatisfied because he's not Billy Donovan, and he hasn't been to a Final Four yet in 6 years or won an SEC championship. That's a little bit more of a fair gripe in a school like Florida in a conference like the SEC. But I think with regards to, this coaching search, I agree with Mike. I think it has to be a guy that's, a big fish, someone with, significant coaching experience and achievement and results. But I think a program, Mike, generally should it turn in year 2 or year 3, because with Archie it was 4. And, I think, the pandemic was unfortunate for Archie, let's put it that way, last year, because it looked like he had the team 20-12. They were going to the NCAA tournament. Who knows what would have happened then, because they were trending in the right direction. And it seemed like, and I thought that's why maybe he would get another year, because of that mulligan, maybe this being a mulligan. But Scott Dolson felt differently.
Yeah, I think that the idea that he never made the NCAA tournament is kind of an unfair construction, because there wasn't an NCAA tournament in the year when he clearly was going. It kind of roughs him up a little bit. I don't think it's unfair to say that they didn't make progress this year, and that there were a lot of varying elements to why they didn't. And one of the areas that I thought that they really erred was in scheduling. I thought that they asked far too much of this team. But it wasn't the only problem. Their roster, the lineup was not properly built. You can't win in the modern game with 3 small guards, none of whom is an elite shooter, and 2 bigs, neither of whom can stretch the offense. You can't. Trace was a tremendous player this year, but always had to deal with more defense than he should have had to deal with. And there are 2 reasons for that. One of them out of Arch's control, which was that Joey Brunk got hurt. So instead of being a power forward guarded by other guys his size, he was often guarded by guys like Miles Johnson, who's 6'11" and can, and has arms that, can reach from sideline to sideline. That's really hard for a guy like Trace to go against. And again, some of that was out of their control. But the other elements of it, they didn't have enough capable shooters. And that was a problem a year ago, and it wasn't resolved this year. And whether that player comes in the form of another power forward or a wing player or one of those small guards, somebody out there has got to be automatic. Somebody has to be, have the ability to stretch the defense on a regular basis and not just a periodic basis. And they didn't have that player. They weren't built great for either end of the court, and some of that is on Arch for who he brought in, but it's also somewhat on Arch for who he played. That he had some of those guys, some of the younger guys, was really reluctant to put on the floor, and I understand that you see them every day in practice, and you know what they do and don't do. But you're also watching every game like the rest of us, and you see what is and isn't happening with the guys who are playing. And the results aren't getting there, and you can tell why the results aren't getting there. And very, very rarely were significant changes made to cope with the problems that were asserting themselves on the floor.
Yeah, so now they have to do the unenviable job of finding the guy. As I told Kevin, as you guys have spoken, we were speaking earlier, there's zero margin for error to pick up what you guys were saying. This has to be the hire. They cannot. It has to be that guy. But Scott has the funding secured already. He knows that.
But see, it's not about money. I mean, you just wrote $10 million check to remove Archie Miller. It's not about money. It's not. It's really not. It's about circumstance. Everybody out there is rich. That's what everybody doesn't understand or isn't willing to understand. They're all rich, except the guys at the level from which you took Archie, who was doing very well. He wasn't not rich, but he wasn't that kind of rich. And so you can get that guy again, but that's what you keep being dissatisfied with. So you can't just get that guy and say, okay, this one will be different if nothing else changes. So either you get that guy and as a result of that, people say, okay, this time, if it takes some time, we're going to be patient. Remember, Arch didn't get there in year 4, but don't tell me that people weren't highly dissatisfied during the long losing streak. And what was that, year 1, year 2, the 12-gamer? You can't tell me people were saying, okay, it's all right, it's only year 2. I covered it. I know that's not what was happening. I live here. It's not what was happening. So if you get that guy, then you have to commit to patience, some degree. And maybe you'll be happily surprised, but most of the time it doesn't work like that. Brad Underwood is now the Big Ten Conference Tournament champion, and is and has a team that many people, including myself, believe has championship qualities. What was their year 2 like? What was their year 3 like? What was it like? Was it we're playing for the Final Four? I don't think so. I remember being down in Tennessee doing a game. Tennessee game on a Tuesday night. That was 2 years ago because that was the team that played Purdue in the Sweet 16, and watching Michigan State's Final Four bound team lose at Illinois. And it was a massive upset. It was a massive upset because Illinois wasn't that good. And that was 2 years ago. So that was year 2 for Brad Underwood. And winning against Michigan State was considered a massive upset. So that was not a successful team. So I think there has to be an understanding that it is a process. And they were, Illinois didn't have much choice but to be patient. So here, you've got a chance to hire a coach who can who you either are able to get that heavyweight, and I don't know whether whether there is a heavyweight who is interested. I know who everybody wants them to go after, and I don't expect that Brad Stevens will be eager to leave the NBA. I haven't spoken to Brad in a while, so I'm not talking from direct conversation, but every indication that he's given to this point is that he's very happy in the NBA. If he chooses to listen to IU, great. He's a wonderful coach, a wonderful person, would be wonderful for IU basketball. If he's interested, great. But if he's not, then there needs to be another heavyweight that's available and interested.
And that's what I meant, that's what I meant. But I said they have the funding because you're going to have that kind of funding to get this kind of coach, and that's the kind of coach that they have to get. They cannot take the route of an Archie Miller again. The fans would go after you just paid $10 million to get rid of them. It has to be a home run hire. And I'm not saying it's got to be Brad Stevens, but there are other names out there. But those names are a much heavier price tag. Chris Beard or whomever, he's already making $4.5 million, I think. So, and has a buyout. So you're going to have a lot more money that they're going to have to spend to get that top guy, I think. I mean, because taking but I don't want to say take the chances, it's not worked out.
The problem is that if that top guy has another job, that money, the point I'm trying to make is that money might not make a difference. If that top guy has another job at which he is happy and successful, you certainly wouldn't hire an unsuccessful coach. If there's another guy out there that has a job, I don't know that money pushes you over the top. It might. It depends on how high you're willing to go. But I mean, if you're going at the high end Big Ten rate, that I'm not sure that would change a lot of minds, because the high end, a lot of the schools that you're talking about could match that rate, and probably would be fairly comfortable doing it. So Mike, I think it's going to be very interesting to see what's available to them.
I'm going to bring up this point, Mike, because I used to hear about this all the time with Billy Donovan 10 years ago when he was at Florida. The whole idea of, when you're coaching at some of these Sun Belt schools like a Nate Oates at Alabama or Chris Beard in Texas, that, football is king down there. You come to Indiana, it's the basketball state, it's the basketball school, it's the big stage, and you could be the guy that turns it around and be king of the state. How much do you think that holds water now in 2021?
I don't think much at all, really. I think that remember, Nate is one who committed himself to a contract extension recently, and my understanding is it's got a significant buyout in it. So I don't know that would be $17 million. But I don't know that. What would be different about Nate Oates from hiring Arch or hiring Tom Crean? I mean, how would that be any different?
Well, for me, he's
a great year at
success
Alabama.
At multiple places.
He had success at chemistry.
Well, Mike, he had success at Buffalo. He took that program that was nothing, turned it into something. He goes to another program, that had not had success, does the same thing very quickly, and has success. He's had success everywhere he's gone quickly, and part of that is at the Power 5 level. And I think that's key, having someone who's had success at the Power 5 level. There's a learning curve for some, and I guess for Archie that's still there.
Tom did.
I guess the bigger point is
in the Big East. And Conference USA, the real Conference USA, or the original Conference USA before that, when they had Louisville, Cincinnati, and Memphis. So I don't know that, I know that Nate is a good example to talk about because it's unlikely that he'll be the guy, but I don't see how hiring a Nate Oates I think he's a terrific coach. Don't get me wrong. I just don't see, other than he comes in and if he were able to win immediately, I don't see how that changes the dynamic of the circumstance. If he won immediately, and remember he went to Alabama, and John Petty and Herbert Jones were already there, and so he certainly brought in other terrific players like Javon Quinterly, and they have been a big part of why they've been successful. But he had a foundation of two high-end players who made the rare choice of sticking around to play all 4 seasons of college basketball. Guys with their ability level usually either hit and go, or they hit, they become good players like John and Herbert did, neither a superstar, and then they say, well, this isn't happening, so I'm either transferring or I'm going pro and just taking my shot. And fortunately for Alabama and college basketball, and probably for John and Herbert, they decided to stay for all 4 years, and Alabama is having great success. College basketball is better for it, and I think both those guys are going to be better for it as well. But that's he walked into that. Now, I mean, if he came here, there's a good core of freshman players certainly, and then there's and then I don't know whether there's a Herbert Jones or a John Petty in there, but there's some very good players. Christian Lander is a talented guy, a 5-star guy. So, maybe someone like Nate could make an immediate splash, and then the process part of it would become less a factor. But if he didn't, then we'd be right back to having the same discussion of it's not happening fast enough. And that's why I say, if you can find a coach who has that no doubter, who has been so far around the world, not just had a SEC championship season at Alabama, but has been all around the world in this, and is still of an age where he's got plenty of juice left, and you just can't. There would be no room to question this coach, whoever it might be. That's who, to me, that's the only person that changes the dynamic at IU based on what we've been watching for the last 20 years. Not the program. The program can be changed by a lot of people.
Yep, it's certainly going to be a fun ride, and to see who they end up with, because right now it is nothing but speculation, and it will remain that way until we get very, very close to it, I'm quite certain. Mike, what do you have coming up now? Of course, the tournament is going on. I'm sure you have tons of broadcasting that you're doing right now.
Actually, given the close of the tournament, pre-tournament season, so my bracket analysis is done. So mostly at this time of year, I turn to the writing stage, and of course our region previews for all 4 regions were published late Sunday, early Monday, and are out there. I broke a story last night about the NCAA having to remove 6 officials from among the 60 they had asked to work the NCAA tournament. They had to remove 6 of them because of one positive test and contact tracing. And it's an interesting story about how that came to be. And then I am working on some other pre-tournament stuff. Yesterday I ranked the 68 teams in the tournament based on their ability to win the national championship. So that's currently up on my Twitter and on sportingnews.com. And then a couple other things I'm working on. One is a list of the dozen greatest Indiana basketball figures, a ranking of the dozen greatest, not IU, but state of Indiana basketball figures.
Wow. Where's that?
So that will be up to sort of celebrate the arrival of the tournament in Indianapolis in the state of Indiana. You got any guesses on who the top 3 are?
I would go with Larry Bird. I would go with Oscar Robertson. And, oh, man, I don't know if you threw a curveball and put Damon Bailey in there. Kevin?
Bob Knight, Branch McCracken. Bob Knight, Branch McCracken. Yeah.
Damon was a
He
heck
didn't
of a
say
player,
players.
but tough to crack that list. You got to say.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Jim Coyle's not on the list, is he?
Nope, he's definitely not on the list. Promise you. I went to Floyd Central. They were too good for me. Man, so do we have to wait to find out?
Yeah, I will give you a hint and say that the number one figure played only about 10% of his high-profile basketball
Oh
career in
my
the state
gosh.
of Indiana.
How did I
And the
God did I
rest was
forget about
elsewhere.
him? That's not. Ooh. Man, that's a good little hint. But I that's brought to mind. I just left the greatest, to me, probably one of the greatest off. George McGinnis. My gosh. What would he have done, Mike, had he stayed in college? With Bob Knight, no less.
Who was that?
George McGinnis.
Who was that you mentioned?
George McGinnis, Bob Knight.
Yes. Yeah, George. Yeah. If he had stayed, yes, exactly.
Oh my God.
I'm not saying he made the wrong choice because he became an
Oh, yeah.
incredible NBA player as well. But wow, what would have happened if he played for Knight, right?
Oh my gosh, it shudders me. It's thrilling. But man, Mike, I know you're busy. Got to get going. It's attorney week getting started. Looking forward to that. Looking forward to talking about it again next week and have fun. Make sure you guys find him. I'm sure you'll be on Fox and the BTN and of course everything on the sporting news as well. Mike, thank you so much, man. Appreciate you.
All right, Jim, Kevin, thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, you listen to us here from the Golf Club Eagle Point Studios, and we got lots more coming up. Brought to you by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer. Back with more right after this.
Welcome to your extraordinary destination, French Lick, West Baden, Indiana.
He's a lot more forgiving to Archie than I am.
Yeah. Yeah.
Archie, I'm sorry. I mean, dude, every freaking metric is a line down from start to finish. Every metric.
Yeah.
But the thing is, he was a jerk. Now, on top of it, I mean, you can't be a jerk and be like that.
Yeah.
Is there anything else going on in the world that we're not? Because, man, we haven't talked about anything in sports besides this crap. I know that's what everybody wants to talk
show.
about.
I mean, we've got the NCAA tournament coming up also.
I do want to let's see. There are no games. The first games are what, Thursday?
Thursday, yeah.
Who do you think? All right, we're gonna ask who do you think is gonna win the national championship? I meant to ask that to Mike. See, next time I'm gonna start doing a break and have him just stay on through the break.
We got Chronic coming up, don't we? Or no? Or
Yeah, I can do him at 10 though.
Yeah, Chronic is lined out for 10.
what did you end up doing on Saturday night when you called me?
End up. Yeah, nothing really.
That construction on 37 is a pain.
I wanted to go back up to the games, but I kept getting a late start, and I'm like, crap.
Yeah.
But I'd had to sit in the press box, and that would have sucked.
Yeah, I found a seat on press row for Saturday, and then Sunday for half the game, and then the guy from the Indy Star came, and I had to give it up. So I worked in the workroom, but that was fine in the second half because I had to, get hopping on NCAA tournament stuff. But it was fun, yeah.
Hopefully next year everything's back to normal.
I know, yeah.
I don't know that it will be. Indiana loves doing these Zooms, man. This may have ruined us.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Well, hopefully the next basketball coach is a normal person, normal human, not like Archie, and will actually talk to people.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what assistance he brings in too.
That's another thing. Who's one Honda dealer? Andy Moore Honda. Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington, where more means more. More selection, more savings.
Come see us at the all-new Andy Moore Honda, now in Bloomington.
Today's guest is brought to you by Reynolds Family Dentistry of Sellersburg. You need $1 million smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you'll get with Reynolds Family Dentistry.
I'm feeling too good myself.
Welcome back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios on this Tuesday. Brought to you by the great folks at Andy Moore Honda. Kevin Brockway sitting in with me as he does each and every week. Jim Coyle with you as I am with you each and every day. You know, who's effectively running the Indiana men's basketball team right now? Mike Roberts and Kenya Hunter?
I think so, yeah. I don't know if you just saw this go across Twitter. I just saw this about Al Durham going to go into the transfer portal.
Well, actually, he was already in the transfer portal.
For a fifth year, yeah. Well, I guess he just announced it now.
I guess this is official, but
yeah.
I think I tweeted out something yesterday that he had said that he was going into the transfer portal, but this is just the official. I haven't read that, but what does it say? Is it thanking? Oh, thank you, Indiana, for allowing me to grow up, mature. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Nice.
God bless him. Good speed, right?
Oh yeah. No. Yeah, no problems with him. I mean, he's a good pickup for a mid-major who needs a veteran.
Yep.
A mid Power 5 team who needs another body. You know, a solid backup.
Good bench guy, yeah. Good 6 or 7. You know, like you
yeah,
think like
he's
Illinois, and they
can you imagine?
Like,
him coming off the bench would be nice. You know, if you got a team where he's coming off the bench.
When you take a look at a team like Illinois, they have a guy like Curbelo coming off the bench. They have DeMontre Williams, like guys like that. That would be a good role for Al Durham in a major team.
See, you just hit on something major, though, Kevin. They got guys coming off the bench that are better than Indiana's starters.
Yep.
That's what people don't understand.
Exactly.
These teams have players coming off the bench that are better than Indiana's starters.
Yeah.
And that's just fact. And that's why you have to have a talent upgrade. But I think that this team can be in the NCAA tournament next season. Sounds crazy. Now that depends. That's not with Christian Lander and more importantly, Trace Jackson Davis leaving. But with them coming back, especially Trace Jackson Davis, when you hire, because I'm not saying if you get the right guy, they have to get the right guy. So I'm just going to go along with they are going to get the right guy. So when they get this guy, I think it's going to be a good enough hire that the players are going to go, okay, I like that. And they're going to stay. I think he can bring in a couple transfers. This team is good enough to have won a lot more games than they won this year had they been coached better, had they been prepared better, had they been developed, had they been done all the things that Archie got fired for. This team was good enough talent-wise to win enough. It's not great, but it was enough. There was enough there to beat Rutgers, to beat Michigan State, to beat those kinds of teams.
I think Mike's point, though, poorly constructed. A team that couldn't shoot, and a team that didn't really have that stretch four that could space the floor. You didn't have a lot. And I like last year's team better. Last year's team at least had some size, to compensate for that with Bronk. You had guys that can offensive rebound and stuff. This year's team didn't even have that. You were playing Race Thompson and Trace in the post, Trace being your biggest guy at 6'9" with a team that can't shoot. You're going to have a team that can't shoot. You got to at least have some size on the boards to get offensive rebounds. So I don't I think that this program is, I think with some of the players we saw, but we did see that growth from Armand Franklin, but then he got hurt at the end of the year. And I think he's an interesting guy to me too, because I think you saw the value of him when he went down. What he meant to that team, both offensively and defensively, and you gotta keep guys healthy. I think that's another thing that Indiana has to examine. Strength and conditioning. And they're bringing Cliff Marshall back, but a lot of injuries over the years. A lot of guys getting banged up. Maybe some of that was how Archie practiced too. Maybe you look at that. There are a lot of things that you have to deconstruct within this program in terms of how it's operating that even go beyond the coach, in my opinion.
Yeah, the injuries are very strange. I've got to be honest with you. The number and the severity, it was odd. I think that from a percentage standpoint, if you went up against a football team, it may look kind of weird, oddly skewed to the basketball side of things. But we'll get to all the comments in the overtime period. But moving forward, the tournament is going on, and I've talked about the difficulties. You got to back channel everything, but in today's day, it doesn't matter. The back channeling is getting done, Kevin, right? I mean, they can get almost everything done, probably, but the last contract details back channeling.
Yeah, and here's the thing: you have the college basketball world here, so Scott Dolson doesn't have to travel very far, right, to get in touch with some of the players when I say players, I mean players involved in these coaching searching processes and so forth. You've got a lot of people here now. They're inside the bubble in Indianapolis, but you've got a lot of movers and shakers that are going to be in the state this month, where you could probably reach out to and have some more personal connections with regards to that. So it's going to be interesting how it is interesting the timing of this announcement coming on the week that the NCAA tournament, the whole college basketball world is descending upon the state of Indiana, and you have this coaching search going on at the flagship university of the state of Indiana with 5 national championships. It just adds another interesting storyline, and for the people inside the state that are Indiana fans, it seems like they could obviously they could probably care less about the tournament, but the tournament's here, and it's always a lot of fun, and I think we were all looking forward to it, and unfortunately looking forward to Indiana being a part of it, and it didn't work out that way.
Yeah, that part is sad, but you want to talk about some irony. Coaching in Simon Scott Assembly Hall this weekend during the NCAA tournament will be Kelvin Sampson of Houston and Chris Beard of Texas Tech. Of course, I mentioned Kelvin Sampson for obvious reasons. He has not been in Assembly Hall since he was unceremoniously shown the door. But Chris Beard is a name that's one of the names on the wish list of people. And I would say that has to be on Scott Dolson's list. He's a Bob Knight assistant, and Scott Dolson's a Bob Knight guy. He was a manager on that 87 national championship team. He's a basketball guy. But Chris Beard's a good coach. He's done it at the Power 5 level. He went to the Final Four the last time we had one. He's got a winning record. He competes in arguably, man, the Big 12 is not as deep as the Big 10. They don't have as many teams, but from the top 6, I don't know there's a lot of difference this year between the Big 10 and the Big 12 and the top 6 teams. So he's competing in that successfully. There's no way he's not on the list. He makes a lot of money is a little bit of a problem. But anyway, he's going to be coaching in Simon Scott Assembly Hall. I doubt he's ever been in there maybe because he was assistant to Knight. Knight hated Indiana at the time, so no reason for him to be here at that point. So this may be the first time he has stepped foot into the Simon Scott Assembly Hall. What does that do to a guy when he looks up at those banners in this iconic place? See that Scott Dolson's getting a little advantage. You're right. Selling. There's some selling going on.
Yeah, and I think too, it's kind of interesting. It's I wonder if he now that Knight is living in Bloomington, does he pop in and see him? I was thinking about that, but of course, the teams are staying in Indianapolis. They're not staying in Bloomington, and they drive down the day of the game. So now I'm thinking about that. When do you squeeze in the time in the bubble with regards to that? But Chris Beard was a guy who worked under Bob Knight, as when Knight was at Texas Tech. And he's a guy, another interesting aspect of Chris Beard, if you do hire him, is he is a master at the transfer portal. He brings in a ton of guys. mixes and matches. He had a kid from Florida, Brandon Francis, who he got, and really helped them during that Final Four national championship run in 2019. A bunch of transfers on that team. A kid from St. John's, whose name escapes me, who was a real impact player. So if he, if they can lure him here, he might be able to work his magic on the transfer portal and fill some holes on this roster that we've discussed in terms of roster construction and lacking shooting.
Well, that's going to have to happen. But I think you're going to see an improvement in the product on the floor overall. Part of the reason I think this team was a very poor shooting team, there is no way these guys can have gotten this bad. I've seen virtually every one of them play in high school. Every one of them. They did not have this problem. They were freer. They have been locked down into this, trying to follow this script. And I talked about this the other day, and it's all you're thinking about is this, I got to do this. Now I got to make this next step. And it's such a weird deal because when you watch Indiana run their offense, they're not crisp. They don't make hard cuts. They don't do anything that is hard, and everything is rounded and kind of 3/4 speed. And I've talked to several players who have brought that up and talked about that. And there's so many different reasons that I think that has led to this lack of confidence. It has to be because there's no way you can have this many guys go bad.
And we saw that on Thursday night because that was about the closest vantage that we got all season was that Thursday night, that game. And I turned to you, and what did I say? I said, they look like they're playing in quicksand. That they just look really slow, methodical, and and you watch other teams in the Big Ten, man, and it's go
coaching.
And they're
about coaching, man.
Yeah,
because they can't be. All we hear about and see about are those pictures of how great they are in the weight room. Well, if they're so damn fast and strong, why are they getting pushed around? Why are they getting outrun? Why are they getting beat to everything? It's effort and coaching, but that ship has sailed. That's why we are where we are, but we're going to take a break. Chronic Hoosier's going to join us next, and I'm looking forward to see what he's got to say. You're listening to Indiana Sports Beat. We're coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, brought to you by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Back with more right after this. Hey, we all want more, and no one gives you more for less than Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. And right,
Chronic.
What's up?
He's already on.
I hear.
Man, oh man. What's there to talk about today?
Never a dull moment in Bloomington, that's for sure, man.
I didn't see it coming yesterday.
It took a pretty significant suspension of belief in everything you've known about Indiana and how they operate to see how we get here right now. Because honestly, our entire history said they don't make that kind of move in these times, and yet they did. So, hey, if we're going to be a football school, we might as well start acting like it.
I think Scott Dolson's the difference. I really do. He's not a – Fred Glass is such a fucking lawyer, bullshit artist, and just a PR guy. And Scott impressed the shit out of me, not just because he pulled the trigger, but listening to him talk. And, he sold me. He really did. And I have complete faith that he will make this higher because, brother, this one's got to be he's got to jack his son out the park.
No, I mean, you're running out of chances to get the move right. And every time you get it wrong, you make the hill that much steeper. You put the program that much farther from relevance. But, speaking of Scott specifically, I don't know there's a human alive in the IU sphere that has a better contact list or Rolodex, if I dare date myself here, than what Scott Dolson brings, but specifically as it intersects with basketball and the cash to make decisions and moves like they're possible.
What else has been going on with you, man? What's shaking? What's going on? Springtime? Anything new fun happening? What's going on in Bloomington? I need something to do.
Man, I just got signed up for my vaccination like literally 5 minutes ago. Come Thursday, one shot, one pop. I'm ready to go lick some doorknobs again. I'm looking forward to it.
Damn, man. What is, I got, oh, shit. Shit, mine's today. I forgot about that. Shit. I get my first one today.
You know what? I was signed
You
up
got
to
the
go to
Johnson
Columbus here
Johnson.
in like 2 weeks. And my wife texted me and asked if she should go to, I think her appointment was in Bedford. And apparently
Elephants and giraffes, lodging that is out of this world, world-class golfing, and a premier resort experience that is waiting for you on your next visit to French Lick, West Baden.
Today's guest is brought to you by Reynolds Family Dentistry of Sellersburg. You need $1 million smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you'll get with Reynolds Family Dentistry.
Hot town, summer in the city, back of my neck getting dirt and gritty. Bend down, isn't it a pity? Doesn't seem to be a shadow.
Welcome back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios on this Tuesday. We've reached the witching hour, and Chronic Hoosier's here with us. Sir, how are you?
Great to be back. I did not expect it to be under these types of circumstances, but I guess here we are, man. Let's do this.
Yeah, the surprise move by Scott Dolson is giving us a good bunch of things to talk about now. Most of that is centered around everyone's wish list and desire list and all the names that are getting batted around. And it's, at the end of the day, no one knows anything about, because Scott Dolson, I don't think Scott Dolson knows who the next coach is going to be at this moment. I think he has a short list of who he's going to be or is back channeling, talking to at the moment. But that's a guess.
You know, I tend to believe we probably have a better, I tend to believe he probably has a better idea than what perhaps he let on yesterday in the press conference. Simply knowing that, you know, for such an uncharacteristic move at a school like Indiana, one, just to eat such an enormous sum of money. Two, you know, I don't want to call the decision rash, but it's certainly not a conservative decision, and that's
decisive.
It was very decisive, but it was, you know, it was uncharacteristic of Indiana to let a coach go after just 4 seasons on a 7-year contract when, you know, recognizing that first class of recruits wasn't really his. You know, he was able to get them all to recommit. He was able to throw Ray Thompson into that class and redshirt him. You know, but those were all largely Crean guys. You know, you really have to look at this year's rising juniors as his first true recruiting class, and not even giving him the chance to graduate that class yet. Like you said, a pretty decisive decision, especially considering the sums of monies involved in order to make this move. And those are things that historically Indiana has not been willing to do. Now, granted, we've never really had a coach in this position where you had a buyout like that you had to factor in. But, you know, that's the thing about buyouts. They cut both ways. They keep the wolves at bay when you want to hang on to your coach, but they can also make it really problematic, or at least cumbersome, when you decide you want to make a move before the contract's had a chance to run its course.
Something I thought about, Kevin Brockway is with us as always from CNHI Papers. Kevin and Chronic, something that occurred to me yesterday late is, oh my God, because they have to get the guy, Chronic. There's no ifs and uts. I've talked about this all day. There's zero margin for error. You said they're running out of chances. I think they're out of chances. I think they've got to get this guy now, or they lose a ton of fans. They just stop caring, because too many had already grown apathetic at the end of this season. But anyway, can you imagine an Indiana University with a football program where it already is right now, and this basketball program even close to where it should be? It'll be a monster. Indiana's one of the smaller schools in the Big Ten, but it will quickly become one of the bigger athletic programs. It could, very easily.
That's the thing that I think we lose sight of a lot. While Indiana is relatively small in stature compared to the Ohio States, the Michigan States of the conference, the Penn States, you know, there's a lot of monsters in the Big Ten East. You know, when Scott was talking about tailwinds behind the program, you know, I think he very astutely references, albeit indirectly, Indiana has the largest living alumni base in the nation. This is a school that absolutely lives and breathes basketball. And, we saw it in 2016. We certainly saw it throughout the Cody Zeller era at Indiana. Just the level of excitement and enthusiasm that bringing good basketball back to Bloomington can stir up in the fan base. And, I was talking with Galen about it last night on the Crimson Cast pod. I think it's one of the reasons why a lot of the national writers kind of like to smack Indiana and say, they're unrealistic in their expectations and, they should just know their place and accept whatever, is because every time Indiana has success, Hoosiers come out of the woodwork just hooting and hollering, excited about the program, getting on everybody because they feel like they're underrated or being disrespected in the national polls. There's just a tremendous amount of support behind Indiana basketball when Indiana basketball is good. And, I think that, as you mentioned, that is certainly waning at a dangerous spot right now because the apathy is just so systemic and widespread. And, that jeopardizes not just the upcoming seasons, but future generations even. So you absolutely have to stave that off. You absolutely have to, continue to invest in the program. But at the end of the day, when you look at the investments that have been made specifically over the last decade plus, it's very safe to assume that you have not gotten a equitable return on investment. And either you walk away from the table or you double down and you keep making the play until you hit jackpot with it. And I think that's the opportunity that Scott Dolson and, the anonymous philanthropists working with him have seized. And, I tend to believe when you're talking about those type of figures, you generally don't make that type of play unless you have a very specific outcome in mind. And I've just got a hunch, and this is purely speculation, just a hunch. I have a feeling that the hire was probably baked in with the fire in order to mobilize those type of resources on what appears to be, pretty short notice. I have a feeling those conversations probably started some time ago, but they certainly came to fruition, became actionable, after the last couple of weeks of Indiana basketball season.
Kevin, go ahead.
I think, Chronic, you bring up that point about the fan base, and I kind of asked Mike this maybe, I didn't phrase it as well, but
Mike DeCourcy.
Mike DeCourcy, but the attractiveness of being the guy, the coach that could bring it back, has to have some kind of allure, doesn't it? In terms of like you could come here in a basketball state where basketball is king, football isn't king, and be that guy that brings the program back. You wouldn't have to buy a dinner for the rest of your life.
It certainly has its perks. It certainly has its risks. I mean, I think one thing that gets maybe undersold in considering this job is, man, you're moving on to a block that's just full of bullies. I mean, the Big Ten is just absolutely brutal right now when you look around the conference and what you're going to be asked to compete against. Forget the fact that Purdue is putting together some pieces to go on a pretty nice run here in the near future. Juwan Howard ain't going anywhere anytime soon. Chris Holtman's not going anywhere anytime soon. Tom Izzo continues to do Tom Izzo things. Brad Underwood is turning Illinois into a force to be reckoned with. We'll see how durable some of those are. But at the end of the day, you got a bunch of bullies on the block. And, if you're looking to bring somebody in to get Indiana back to prominence, to get Indiana back to national and conference relevance, you better find somebody that's got some chops. It's got some juice that he can bring to the job, because while there's certainly a ton of resources and a ton of support behind you, make no mistake, you're walking into a knife fight from day one. Probably you're late to the knife fight, because I guarantee right now every player on the existing rosters is receiving phone calls from other coaches trying to poach them right now. It's not for the faint of heart. There are tons of fortune and treasure that await anybody that can come into the job and find success. But do so at your own peril, because it's not going to be an easy task. It's not going to be an easy task to reverse the recent fortunes and do what several guys before haven't been able to do since Bobby Knight left. But forget about all the history. You got to figure out a way to beat the Michigans, the Illinois, the Ohio States of the league before you even start having a conversation about is Indiana basketball back again.
Yeah, and it's something that I agree. You said earlier. Indiana's a blue blood program. I don't care what anybody thinks. It's a blue blood program that has been dormant. but it is still a blue blood program, because I promise you, as agreeing with what you said, and I said this earlier, all this needs is the right guy. And it's going to be like Jack and the Beanstalk. This thing is it's going to sprout so big, so fast. You talk about them coming out of the woodwork. They're ready to pounce. And not only that, with all the years of frustration, holy crap. I mean, it will be big once it gets there. But the good thing is, the right guy, I think, can make that program, I don't want to use the word relevant. They're always relevant, but they can be competitive next season. I think they could actually be in the NCAA tournament next season, because the way today is different. This is not back when Tom Crean was here trying to rebuild. The transfers are easy. You can bring guys in. You don't need as many guys. You just need some key pieces. And that's a lot easier fixed today than it was in the past. So you can create a team pretty quickly with the right guy who brings in some culture or reestablishes that culture. And I think that can be done quicker than people think.
No, and that's one thing, again, Galen and I were talking about. You're bringing in a coach at a completely, and I hate this word, I hate the cliche that it's now become, but the unprecedented nature of these times right now, with the transfer market being what it is, and the waivers that are available to everybody this season. And that's a two-way street. I mean, you very well could face possibility where, a substantial part of your roster is walking out the door before you ever have a chance to unpack. Now, on the flip side, you've got playing time to offer. You've got some critical spots you need to fill. And you have basically an unlimited pool of recruits around the country, and you're probably filling one of the most prestigious jobs this coaching cycle as well. So there's certainly a lot of factors in play, but it's certainly something that we've never seen before, for good and for bad. As far as the prospects of what the next coach ultimately is going to walk into, you've got to find some shooters, you've got to find a serviceable point guard, you've got to find some interior depth, and you've got to find a way to mix it all up so that the sauce works for whatever style, for whatever culture you're trying to instill in the program right now. So, I think it all circles back, though, to just how critically important it is getting the hire right from the get-go, as far as the fit that we talk about, this amorphous element that seems to matter, more than anything else. You got to find the right guy, because at the end of the day, it's still a blue blood. As long as the university continues to spend the resources they do on the facilities, on the staff, on all the things that go along with a Power 5 big time program, the recruiting budget, and even more so, you're still selling out the Assembly Hall, one of the largest gyms in the nation. And I think that just speaks to where Indiana's place is in the college basketball hierarchy, because whether it was the early Crean years, the early Archie Miller years, people still showed up. They still turn out and support. And obviously COVID kind of threw everything sideways there. But I think what you'll see is, there's going to be a tremendous outpouring of support from the onset. And, you're going to have the opportunity. It's a really, really brief window, but seize that, build upon it, give them reason, to believe, because it's real easy up front when you're selling a dream, when you're selling a vision. As Archie saw, once you've had some years to put some tape on film, that's when the rubber meets the road, and it gets markedly more difficult to continue to instill that confidence in the fans, as well as in the players, and probably most importantly at this point, in the recruits that are going to be, your lifeblood down the road.
Yeah. One thing we've talked about, all the names that are being batted around, and it is all a guessing game right now, because the phrase I use it almost every day, is to try to tell people, you don't know what you don't know. And I don't know what I don't know. So there are a lot of equations that go in that I don't have to plug into, as far as who the next guy is going to be. We talked, everyone's, of course, their wish list. Brad Stevens is the top of that. We just had Mike DeCourcy on. He does not think that Brad is I wish he'd have said this on the air. We were off air talking. He goes, I said, you think he just won't return to college? And he says, not voluntarily. And I found that to be funny. So I don't know that he's realistic. I know that I don't want to say they're going to have an open checkbook, Indiana, but they're going with a fat fat checkbook this time, but you're going to have a fat checkbook to get anybody like Chris Beard. Chris Beard already makes $4.5 million, and he's got a buyout. Nate Oates is not in the equation. He's got a $17 million buyout. He's out of the question. So there are options. A lot of people. I put up a poll, Chronic, and this amazed me. Brad Stevens ended up getting, I think, or is leading a little bit now, but over John Beeline with an IU guy as a future successor in mind, like a Calbert Chaney. I know people have mentioned Dane Fife, but I don't know that he's leaving Michigan State.
Yeah, that's the most difficult thing, and I kind of made mention of this yesterday. Discussing hires like this or moves like this, decisions like this. You have to understand the opportunity cost or the value of the next best thing, the other options available to you, and when those options are unknown, you're really just flying in the dark here. You have no idea. You tell me who's willing to receive Indiana's phone calls right now, and I'll tell you what the best options may be. But unless realistically, and understanding none of these are ever direct conversations. Scott Dolson is not talking to coaching candidates. This is all happening via intermediaries and agents and people. My people get with your people, and we'll see if it makes sense for us type thing. Let me know who those people are that are willing to at least pick up the call and answer and hear you out, and then I'll tell you maybe where the options are. But I think that's going to be the fascinating element of it, because that gives you an indication as to how desirable the job is. And resources, Indiana has invested. They've continued to invest. Recognizing that, well, at least according to USA Today, Indiana is now the 21st highest paying job in college basketball. It was the 10th, I believe, when Archie was hired. Various times throughout Crean's tenure, they were top 10 in salary as well. Number one in recruiting budget, at least among publicly available schools that report that type of information. But also recognizing, there is a slim difference as you move up the ladder. I mean, obviously with guys like Calipari making $9 million, Krzyzewski making $7 million, it drops off pretty quickly shortly thereafter. Now, one of the things that's fascinating, Chris Beard is currently fourth on that list at $4.8 million this year with a buyout of 15. Realistically, that probably ain't happening in Indiana right now. In a perfect time with guaranteed seats available come fall, it would make a whole lot more sense. But at the end of the day, even though things are trending in the right direction, as far as our COVID response and the way we're containing this, there's still no guarantee that variants don't pop up this, in the foreseeable future and set us back so that perhaps you're not at full capacity, you're not at half capacity. And, you're dealing with a program right now that's got tens of millions of dollars of deficits in its budget to be making these types of investments. And that area of risk is it's risky. I mean, I don't know how else to put it. But you've got people that have been willing to step up and absorb that. So it'll be real curious to see exactly where that final figure falls. Be really curious to see exactly what those additional transition costs entail, because, as Scott mentioned, you've got one donor picking up the buyout check. You've got another donor picking up the transition check. What's transition check mean? Are you paying somebody else's buyout to bring them in? Are you devoting additional monies for a staff? Because I think that's going to be a critical element in getting this job right, is you've got to give the coach the resources to get absolutely the best people around him. Because the way that this job works, while the rosters are small, the staff's impact on the team's operation and the overall construction of the program are just invaluable anymore. And, you're going to have to get all those pieces right. And those pieces probably aren't going to be cheap. But at the end of the day, I don't think it's also, go out and buy the most expensive guy available to you, because that's not always going to be the right fit for what you're trying to do. So, again, I'm fascinated to see who's on the short list, who's taking those calls. Because as you've seen, guys like Juwan Howard, I don't think a lot of people had him on their hot list when Michigan was moving to replace John Beeline. And as it turns out, you can get a guy on the cheap he's lightning in a bottle for your program. Those dudes are out there, and I'm sure Indiana has them in droves. Is Indiana willing to make that type of a risk, take that type of a chance? Or are they going to go with somebody that's more proven, a more established name? I mean, all these things are absolutely, fascinating, but completely unknown at this point until you really recognize what emphasis Scott Dolson's putting on certain qualities. I'd love to know what Quinn Buckner thinks about the coaching pool too, because my guess is more so than almost anybody else, those two guys are going to be the ones driving the bus and determining where this thing ultimately lands.
Man, I cannot agree with you more, and it's just going to be a waiting game right now, and we'll have fun talking about it, though. I cannot thank you enough, brother. Look forward to the next week. Hopefully the weather's going to get better. You got your vaccinations scheduled or whatever, so that's good. Mine's scheduled for today, so go out and have a great day.
Looking forward to it. I'll tell you what, man. If we don't have anything in hand by this time next week, my guess is that next person's probably still coaching basketball right now.
I would guess that to be the case as well. Chronic Hoosier joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat, man. I can't thank you enough.
Thanks for having me, guys. Be well.
We're back after this from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. Hey, we all want more, and no one gives you more for less than Andy Moore Honda. Man, I went like 9 minutes over. I don't know what I'm going to do here. I can actually go over. It doesn't matter. We just need to tell them, hey, we went over 3 minutes today. I don't think they mind, especially with the content.
45 and older for the vaccinations now, so I officially qualify.
Did you get it scheduled?
Well, it just happened today, so it was.
Dude, you should have scheduled it immediately, because when I scheduled mine, it was right before the show, and it didn't go in, and then after the show, and went back and did it again. It was a 2-week difference.
Yeah.
But it's today, so and I just realized that. Son of a bitch. My car's getting worked on.
When are you getting vaccinated?
I don't even want to say. It's almost embarrassing. Walmart.
No, when? What time?
2:40.
Right. There's nothing embarrassing about getting it done at Walmart. You get it done where you get it done.
Well, the pandemic is circling the world, and my savior is at Walmart. It just cracks me up.
Yeah.
It's like, gee whiz.
I'll probably get mine.
It was just the closest. It was just the closest available deal. Flip, I'm hot, man.
Is that the one? That's the one by me, right? The Walmart by me.
Yep.
All right.
Oh. Ooh, I'm a little wardrobe change.
Getting warmer.
Man, I'm telling you. All right. So when we come back, I should only have. We're going to
wrap it.
We're going to have to go 5 minutes over for the radio show, and then stop, and then do a quick overtime. What are you doing today?
Gonna do. I'll do a story. 5 candidates to replace, and then I'm gonna do. Well, I guess now we don't have the football Zoom, which is good.
Who are your 5 candidates you're going to do though?
I don't know. I was thinking about oats and beer, but now you're talking about those buyouts. I don't know.
Oats is not close to being. I don't think you can touch him. They just signed him like 3 weeks ago.
50 million, right?
I didn't know what his buyout was until Chronic he just said 15 million. Holy crap.
Yeah,
but my question is, I'm guessing that this second donor is going to give a like-minded amount, or maybe they give the whole amount. I don't know what I don't know. But if they give 10 million also, that means Indiana's only
encounter with elephants and giraffes, lodging that is out of this world, world-class golfing,
it's doable,
and a premier resort experience that is waiting for you on your next visit to French Lick West Bay.
This segment is brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer. Oh, wow. Blast from the past. It's so funny. Welcome back to the Hoosier Gym, home of the Huskers. Wow, man. Funny, that clip came on for that movie last night, and I'm like, boy, I was like, I need to watch that again.
I figured that'd be appropriate to wrap up the show.
Kind of funny, yeah.
I interviewed Angelo last week, actually.
Yeah, Angelo's great. Been on the show several times. Angelo Pizzo.
Yeah, we're doing a commemorative Hoosiers 35th anniversary page. So for the movie,
I know. All right. I'm friends with one of the guys that was in. You'll remember this scene. He lives here in the Bloomington area, but it was when they're going to Terhune to play those thugs, and they go out in the middle of the floor, and he goes, they're out there arguing. He goes, "You're playing like a bunch of gorillas." And then one of the players says, "Who you calling a gorilla?" He says, "You for one." And then one of his players hits that guy. Well, I know that guy that's in that scene. It's so cool. I'm like going, man, he had dialogue with Gene Hackman. I'm like, wow. But yeah, it's just such a cool thing. But it sucks that we talk about things. The greatest are in the 80s right now. Let's get it revamped. And that's what Scott Dolson is exactly trying to do. He used keywords, the Indiana brand. And it is a great brand. Still, that's the thing. And Kevin, you're great to talk to about this because you're not from here. You've worked in other big markets, sports markets. And so you have a perspective that is not one that is clouded by being from the state or going to the school in any way. And when I think it was Chronic talking about that national guys, outside guys kind of see a lot of the IU fan base as unrealistic. And that's just not the case. I think it's very realistic. They should not be in the position they're in. That's the sad part. If you really knew the truth, if you were here.
Yeah, no, you have this great passion for basketball. That should be a great selling point, this whole state. And you would think that it would, carry, a certain amount of weight with recruits and with coaches, that it would help with regards to the situation. But I do think the thing is, like, you can embrace, and I thought Scott Dolson was great about this. When he said, you can embrace the past, but you have to kind of think forward. And I think that's where Indiana is right now. They're in a critical juncture with regards to that, because that tradition is getting further and further in the rearview mirror as we go, and it's kind of time to find someone that can, get it to the next wave, because those fans are dying off. Basically, and it's it's something that you try to pass down to your children, your grandchildren, but are they going to really, want to go out and continue to watch a losing product? And that's kind of where we are right now with Indiana basketball.
Yeah, this is not completely accurate. One donor paid the buyout for Archie. Another donor is paying to help acquire the new coach. That means helping with their buyout, because that's exactly what that means. Any coach that they're going to go after, they're not going after. I'm with all the talk of Scott Dolson and the rebrand and all of that. This is something I could see happening easily. Calbert Chaney was someone that I thought of for a while. Once I realized he was an assistant at the Pacers, I was like, oh crap, I didn't realize he was here. And he's had some head coaching experience, I think, in the G League. That's a distinct possibility, I think. But that's just a guess. That's just because it sounds good on paper, looks good on paper. No idea where Scott Dolson is going, but he doesn't need a buyout for John Beilein and Calbert Chaney. So the fact that he has secured that money leads me to believe that's not the route he's going, Kevin.
Yeah, no, I think that, I think you want someone with college experience that's significant. And, Brad Stevens falls on that list because of all the years in Butler as well. And somebody that, is forward thinking, that knows where the game is going. I think that's very important, and Scott said process driven, someone that can tie in recruiting, playership development, leadership development. Remember he said, which I thought was very interesting, a guy that develops leaders.
I think that was a reference to Tom Allen almost.
And that was we saw was sorely lacking on this team this past season. No leadership whatsoever.
Force something about Scott Drew I don't like. I think that his past, there was talk in his past I don't know that there's ever has there ever been anything that has really come up about him, though? I know that there was just talk about back in the old days he was kind of shady, but if he's not, then that talk just needs to be ignored. He's definitely a candidate because he's financially feasible. He's attainable. He makes like 2.7. He has very little buyout, and he has a long, proven track record at the Power 5 level. He had the best team in the country before COVID took them out. I don't know that they can get back to that level. Something we need to talk about today. We haven't talked about the tournament at all, but because Gonzaga has not been affected. They just been able to slide right through. But he's got to be looked at. He's from Indiana, for God's sake.
I'll praise him. Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, you got to vet everybody, but he's definitely a candidate because he checks a lot of boxes.
Yeah.
I'll let their vetting take care of the other, but I mean, you can't say that would be a bad hire. My gosh, he's just had too long of a run of success, and he's done it without 5-star talent, which means he recruits, he develops.
Yep.
Let's see. We got to take I guess we got to end the show, but let's do a quick end for the radio audience. You can stick around for the overtime period, but I want to thank everybody. Of course, Mike DeCourcy, Chronic Hoosier, and the great Kevin Brockway for joining us here on the radio side of things. Hope you guys go out and have yourselves a great day. Wear your masks. Do something nice for somebody. Until tomorrow, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio. I'll bring that back up in a second. Alfred, man, I've already. This is the last time I'm even going to address Steve Alford. He would not unite anything. I think that whatever he would divide any era because half the people know he has had zero success as a coach, man, in a tournament. I don't understand this unless, it no sense.
Make IU popular with today's recruits. That's kind of funny.
What's that?
Make IU popular with today's recruits. I think it's funny how,
how
people think that
they don't know. Today's recruits have never heard of Steve Alford.
Yeah, and he's saying redo the brand, but I think listen, in recruiting, there are schools that cheat and schools that don't. I think that's pretty apparent. So.
Yep, and that's another
people that get wound up about recruiting with regards to rankings and stars and stuff. I mean, and half of it is silliness anyway. But I think that you get guys in here that are moderately good and develop them. Look at what Brad Underwood's done. I mean, I would assume New was a 3 or 4 star maybe, and now he's one of the best players in college basketball.
There's just no question. I mean, everybody's. I don't care about being nice about Archie. He walked out of here with 27, close to $30 million. So no, I don't care about Archie's feelings. He was paid to do a job that he could not even come close to achieving. It's just it's unfathomable how horribly of a job was done. Seriously, for wow. But anyway, it is. Got to change today, which it has, and Scott has made that change. So there's talking about Archie is now pointless. It's done. I don't even want to talk about him anymore. So where are we? Forrest says, I agree, we can't change choices ever, but you're not doing that. See, that's the thing. You didn't. Tom Crean was here for what, 9 seasons. You brought in a guy. He was an abject failure. You cannot on every level when there is when you at least you usually have a heartbeat. There was no heartbeat in Archie Miller's game, period. Quit blaming the pandemic. Yeah, there's no pandemic, blah, blah, blah. Whose fault is it? There were the correct players, Archie's, yada, yada, yada. So, but there's no talk about Archie. Done with that stuff. And actually, there's nothing really else because everything else is just a guess right now. So I really don't think that Brad Stevens is going to be an option, Kevin. I just don't.
Yeah, no, I think it's going to be very difficult. Yeah, whose fault is it that they weren't the correct players? Exactly, it's Archie's fault in terms of with regards to you're the coach, you're the recruiter. You bring in the guys. And if they weren't the right fit, they weren't the right fit, and you poor roster construction. Yeah.
Yeah, it's too bad that more aren't playing in the Simon Scott Assembly Hall with all these teams. I mentioned earlier that Chris Beard is one that would be. And, he's got as Chronic mentioned, he's up there. He's got a $15 million buyout and is making $4.8 million a year right now. That's going to be hard to overcome, but it's not impossible because Indiana has money from a donor to help with the buyout, at least, if not pay it all. If you had someone who paid that entire buyout, Indiana is just on the hook for the salary, which would be ahead normally because of not having to pay a buyout. So it's not like it's unattainable, Kevin.
Yeah, no question. It is. I think that it can happen, but you've got to, hopefully this guy has some pretty deep pockets in terms of, having to pay $15 million. That's a lot of money. But
well, I'm Indiana's got. There are two donors specifically that are billionaires, Kevin. Billionaires. Yeah. That's blowing me. 5 million, 10 million. That's a lunch brunch affair. When you have billions. I mean, seriously, it sounds ridiculous, but it's the truth. And the more I think about it, Chris Beard is not unattainable from a financial standpoint. I don't think that Stevens is unattainable from a financial standpoint. I don't know that he wants to come back to college, like Mike said. He said, I don't think he's coming back voluntarily. I don't know that he's getting fired by Boston. And if he did, I think there's a whole lot of NBA teams that would be lining up for his services. Yes, you agree? Oh, you're trying to read the
I'm reading the comments. I'm sorry. So Indiana starts its coach with literally every coach successful coming to town and staying the entire month. Boss move by Dolson. NCAA take notice.
Yep. So there we go.
Yeah.
That's about it. I mean, there's nothing else really to talk about. It's the same little stuff right now, just until something pops. But nothing's going to happen in the next day or two. Especially if the guy that they're looking at or wanting is still coaching, Kevin. This doesn't happen until they lose. Yeah.
No, I think that's the thing. You got to play the waiting game a little bit, but hopefully you get a guy that is worth it. Someone that can be your guy, and you can lock him up and make him the guy to lead Indiana basketball into this next decade, which will be an interesting decade post-pandemic. And you've got a challenging road ahead in the Big Ten, but you hopefully you do it. You get it. You get the job done. You start with the players and roster construction and development, and you look at the whole process like Scott Dolson did. And process-driven coach. I thought that was interesting, like you said. And Tom Allen certainly has that in football. You have that kind of a coach, and I think you're looking for that kind of a coach in the basketball side.
Yeah, you know what? I think Tom Allen could be largely responsible for this, not waiting, because they look at Tom Allen, who had zero head coaching experience when he took over at Indiana, and it was a stroke of luck, let's be honest, because it was a completely different way of doing things than any other coach in the history of trying to do that here. And now you've got a program that has been a doormat basically for 50 years. All of a sudden, a guy turns it around, and you've thrown every resource possible, the basketball program, and you can't get that turned around. That put a lot of pressure. That you cannot have your bell cow program being the laughing stock of your programs. And it had become that. And that Tom Allen inadvertently has put a ton of pressure on Archie Miller, Scott Dolson, and all those folks.
What did Tom Allen do? He got players and he developed players. And I think that's what you're looking for here, is that synergy. You get the player and you develop a player. And look, they don't all have to be 5 stars. you can get 3 or 4 stars, but you got to be able to develop them. You got to be able to get them better. And that wasn't happening under Archie, in large. It wasn't happening.
Yeah, an interim is not going to work. I thought about that. If you had a staff that had somebody on it, maybe, but that's the whole, you cannot do that for a number of reasons. The reason they had to get rid of Archie now, he would have been lame duck, like an interim would be a lame duck. A lame duck can't recruit. Archie couldn't have recruited because he would have been known to be a lame duck coach. And you have to make the change now. If you don't, because you have to start this change next season, because as I've said, next season I honestly believe they can play in the NCAA tournament. You get a couple of transfers, the right coach can turn things around and have them playing decently. And then the next season it gets better. You wait that extra year, now you've turned it into a rebuild. You probably gutted the roster and all that, and you've completely turned it into a rebuild. That's why you cannot have an interim. I understand the thought, though. Thanks for the comment, Jonathan. Let's see. No. When they say interim, they're talking about the guys who are just running the team. Yeah, so that's that. But anything else? I don't see anything else different to talk about. Anything else, Kevin?
I think can help this team. If these assistant coaches were any good, the program would have been good. Come on.
See, that's another problem. Changes. 4 years. The only change on the staff was
Bruiser left running Hunter.
Well,
yeah.
before that though, you had after Keon Brooks got away to Kentucky. Man, I'm blanking on.
And Shilling.
Yes, they kind of parted ways with him. But yeah, no change. I mean, no, and there was never no dynamic. None of these guys had a dynamic personality. There was never anything that seemed to be electric coming from the staff. I mean, everything. We talk about all these players, and they say that Charlie Miller said it the other day. The coach, the team's identity is going to come from the coach. We've talked about this so much. Bob Knight was a tough guy. You think of Huggy Bear, his tough teams, and these guys are teams that are very smart. Tom Izzo's teams don't make mistakes. Archie's team was a direct reflection of him. They had no personality. They had no identity. They weren't successful. They didn't do things right. And it was a mess. And it was just a complete representation of that. So you got to get somebody in here who is organized, who has a plan that will work, not continually trying to force round pegs into square holes. And Archie was just determined that he was going to do that because, by God, it was going to work at this level, and it would not. Well, he's gone.
Yep, and stubbornness, inability to change. Yeah, I think that will go down as part of Archie's downfall here at IU was that inability to adapt, inability to change, and inability to develop. I think is the biggest issue. Players not getting better, players not gelling as a team. I think and no leadership.
All that goes into development. All that goes into development. Here's an interesting point from Sean. Thoughts on bringing the team into the 21st century, I guess you're saying, with new uniforms, new court design, bring some flash to the younger fans. First of all, in the uniforms, no. There's no reason to change the uniforms. There's no reason to change the uniforms. They are what they are. That's Indiana's uniform. I do, however, would like to see an alternate here and there. And the one I'd really love to see is the script. Man, the Huskers, Nebraska has an alternate that has Huskers on it, and they're in that script, how the Huskers is written, look cool as hell. The Indiana script, I think, would look good in maybe a gray something different. But other than that, no. I don't. They're not gonna. Indiana is a conservative place. They're not gonna do much with the court. I do, however, believe that they should bring the sound into the 21st century. You've got to bring some music into that mortuary of a place. Part of it's been a mortuary because the play has sucked. But now when the play comes back, it's rocking and rolling on its own. That's what people don't understand. It is so loud in there that's not even needed. But I think it would be so beneficial if they capitalized on that momentum when it does come back. And yes, I think that they should get a little modernized. Stop serving to the 60, 70, 75-year-old crowd, man. Start cultivating a younger audience, a younger program. Scott Dolson talked about the rebrand of Indiana. There you go. I think that would be part of it.
Well, listen, as Alabama, they haven't changed uniforms in football. They're fine. Penn State, they're fine, until this last year. So I don't know. To me, it's about modernizing on the court, the product on the court, the players, the style of play, more than off the court. I think that's, a little bit of window dressing. And don't get rid of the mop lady either. Love the mop lady in the beginning.
What's that?
I love the mop lady in the beginning.
You're talking about on the deal.
Don't get rid of the mop lady intro.
We've got it, man. Well, that's that's gonna. Unless what else you have? What do you have coming out?
I will have my five candidates to replace Archie Miller, NCAA tournament coverage all week, and lots of fun stuff.
No, that was Fred Glass. He got rid of the DJ, I believe. So, but that's gonna wrap it up, man. I cannot appreciate you guys or thank you guys enough.
Mr. DJ,
comments, Mr. DJ, but I thank you guys enough. I think we're gonna try to do a show this week after the season with Todd Leary instead of after the game. But Todd's not gonna be there, so we're gonna have a special guest. So or guests. That may be coming Thursday, so we'll see what we can get done there, man. But Kevin, I can't thank you enough.
Are you going to do like an NCAA tournament show from Yogi's or anything like that? Or
that's just various things to talk about. See what player we can get some different things in there, but absolutely looking forward to it. Thanks for all that. Yesterday, I was like having three birthdays on Facebook. I think I had like 500 messages yesterday once this thing started going. It was nuts. But you guys are awesome, man. The comments are great. The audience keeps growing. We can't thank you enough. If you haven't subscribed to us on YouTube, please do because we need to get everything moved over to YouTube. But and spread the word, please. We appreciate you guys so much. Go out and have yourselves a great day. Wear your mask. Do something nice for somebody. And until tomorrow, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.
All right.